Today we're going to talk about how to bond with your bearded dragon. Maybe you have a new bearded dragon, or maybe you have one that you still don't feel like you two are really getting along. So today we're going to talk about what you can do to build a relationship so that you can bond with your dragon. Thanks for stopping by. Give them time to settle in. I know it's hard if you just got them. They're really cute. You want to pick them up and handle them. But once you get them into their enclosure after you've brought them home, you really should just leave them alone for a couple of weeks. Look at it this way. They went through a whole lot to get to you. They may have traveled. They may have flown. Maybe you went to an expo and picked them up. And that also can be traumatic because they're going through all these different bumps and different places, and suddenly they're now in a brand new environment. So it's really scary for a little guy or girl to be going through. So I just want to make sure you give them that time to feel safe and settle in before you start your bonding. To get them ready, you can sit next to their enclosure and talk to them, read a book, maybe sing, just be there so that they get used to your presence. You can also do an activity. Let them see when you are preparing their food that you are putting the food out for them, but don't approach them until you start the next phase of the process. So at this point, when it's the first couple weeks, you're going to just let them see you, let them know you're around, and that's pretty much it. Now, bearded dragons can startle easily, so it's important that you keep the area around them fairly relaxed and chill so that they don't feel stressed out. Now, they might enjoy the traffic of people and things, and they really like watching TV. At least it seems that they do. So those are things that are fine, but definitely try to avoid like really loud noises. Make sure that their environment is very positive and calm so that they have that ability to just relax before you start working to handle them. One thing you could do before you even start to handle them is you could put an article of your clothing in their enclosure so they can get used to your smell. I actually cut a little blanket for my guy, so if he needed to feel like he needed to cuddle up to something, he could. But I took a little blanket before I even put it in his enclosure before I got him, and I slept with it a few times with it under my shirt, so it would kind of leave my scent, because everybody has, everybody has some kind of their own personal scent that bearded dragons can smell when they stick out their tongue, and that's a whole nother video. But I wanted him to know what I smelled like, so he would get that smell before he could even start to get used to me. Another thing you can do to get them used to the idea of you is put your hand in their enclosure. So you can just put it in, just maybe start off with just your hand and then gradually a little bit more until your arm is in, and then just kind of sit there. Don't make eye contact because you don't want to freak them out. Just sit there, do your thing. Maybe you're reading while you're doing this. You could be talking to somebody or watching TV or singing or talking to them. But just starting off with that gradual introduction of part of your body. But if they come up to you, don't just grab them. This is not the time to do it. Every dragon's different, but this is just my best advice when you have a brand new dragon. And also kind of think of it as this way. If you go and reach for something, we're monsters to them. We're huge. So it's pretty scary, especially when they're not used to you yet. It's like this. I mean, that's kind of creepy. If you're like this little creature and someone's rah, we want to avoid them from thinking you're scary, because impressions can last. So definitely just keep it positive and light and do it on their terms. It might take a while, but you'll build a bond that will last. Make sure you prepare the bugs for your dragon in front of them so they can see that you are preparing their food. If you're able to prepare the salad in front of them, or at least the last parts of it, then they can see that you are giving them while you're preparing and giving them the food that they'll be eating. They kind of tend to go, okay, I see this person, I think it's time to eat, or that person's bringing me food. They're okay. At least that's the idea. So bond over food. One thing I did with my first bearded dragon is I had a glass jar and I would tap the side when I had crickets in it, and I would just shake it and just tap, 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 tap. And she knew that that was feeding time. So she would just stop what she was doing and she'd just jump off of her tree and just run, run, run. And she was super excited to have food. So I've done that with my my bearded dragon I have now, and also my African fat-tailed gecko. It works for multiple species. If you get them to know like a pattern, you know, in this case, it was just a glass jar, tap, 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 tap. You can also take the feeding tweezers and tap, and that also really makes a nice sound. So if it's a consistent sound, they'll get used to this means this, at least for lizards. For snakes, that would be something potentially different. Still getting used to snakes and learning more about that. But with lizards, they can hear. So they have the ability to kind of recognize sounds could mean such and such. So tap, tap, tap on the glass means food. So that's another thing you can do to get them used to feeding time. And when you feed them, they will see you and go, oh, tap, tap, tap. I see that person. They mean food. So they are nice to me. Okay, once it's been 2 weeks, you could take a tweezer, hold up a bug, and let them come to you, like possibly come up to your shoulder. So I've done this with Kaiju. He was super skittish when I got him. And he was described that way to the breeder. She was fantastic. I said, is he aggressive or nippy? And she said, no, he's just skittish. So he's very shy. And she was absolutely right. He's always been that way. He really trusts me, but I built that trust. And it took more than a couple weeks to be able to get him to be used to being picked up. I would pick him up and he'd run away. But one thing that really helped, I found, was putting my arm on the outside of the enclosure, just on like the little table that his enclosure was on. And then I brought the worm out. He'd see it, and then I'd bring it up to here, and he would come up to my arm. Sometimes I'd have to get him to come closer and closer until he'd come up. And I'd let him go back in. I'd let him come out, let him go back in. I would not just grab him, because you don't want him to feel restrained or hurt. And you don't want them to be scared, because, again, we're huge to them. We're scary, big monsters, really. So it's just important to let them know that we're not going to hurt them. We're going to be gentle. We're going to be kind, which is just a good lesson, actually, for people in general. So just, you know, be good to your dragon, and they'll be happy. Keep a schedule. Bearded dragons really thrive by having a schedule. So the same time that their lights go on and off, you can get an automatic timer for that. The same time that they're fed every day. Any kind of routine is helpful for them to get used to just what to expect. I also wear the same hoodie when I handle Kaiju. You might notice in a lot of my pictures I'm wearing the same green hoodie. It's because I put it on so that he doesn't scratch up my arms. I prefer short sleeves. That's just what I like to wear. So when I handle him, I tend to throw on the long sleeve hoodie, zip it up, and then that way he can climb all over me and I'm not hurt at all. I don't cut his nails. He does have some stone in his enclosure and some rough objects that he can walk on, and that gradually just kind of lessens them. But they're not super short, and I'm okay with that. He doesn't hurt me. And I don't want to hurt him by accidentally cutting the wrong way. So that's what I do so I don't get scratched up. And also he notices that when I get the hoodie, he knows it's time to be handled. So one time I was in the front room and he was glass surfing. And I was like, oh, I guess he wants to be handled. So I went in the other room, put something down, came back. And apparently when I left, he was calm. Then when I came back, he started glass surfing again. But not like super glass surfing, not like a lot. But he was just, like, I want to get out. And then when he saw me get my green hoodie, he doubled down because he knew that meant that I was going to take him out. And they do like to be out. Obviously, you want to limit how much time they get out of their enclosure because they really need that basking time so that they can digest their food and so they can absorb that calcium and have that strong enough for their bones. If they don't get the calcium that they need, then it gets leached from their bones. And that's when metabolic bone disease happens. We're not going to talk about that on this video. But if you want me to do a video on MBD, metabolic bone disease, I can do that in the future as well. Just shoot a comment below. And when I hear that people are interested in certain topics, I kind of push those to the front. At this point, you have done everything that you need to get them used to you, to get used to their space, to get used to the idea of being handled. Now you're going to go and handle them. Now, not all dragons like to be pet, and some are more social than others. Mine is okay with being pet, but initially he wasn't. Like I said, mine was skittish, so it took some getting used to. I've heard people say start at the bottom of their tail and work your way up so they get used to the gradual touch. My guy didn't seem to like that. You can pet their head, but just make sure that you're not touching their third eye. That's the little dot in the top of their head. It senses light. So you don't want to touch that. You could pet their beard, but some bearded dragons really don't like it. Some are okay with it. And some like the pets on the head and some don't. So it's just a matter of what your bearded dragon likes. Keep the sessions short until they get used to you. And make sure that you're always being gentle. You don't want to really press hard. Just press lightly so they know that you're there. If they close their eyes, it could mean that they are feeling okay. It could also mean that they're thinking, please go away. If I shut my eyes, you're not there, because they don't seem to have object permanence. So if they shut their eyes, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's a happy thing. It's hard to know for sure because we can't read their minds. But if they're doing that, just kind of read their other body language and make sure you're keeping that session short so that you don't overwhelm them or make them stressed out. When you go to pick up your bearded dragon, there's a couple different ways you can approach this. The bottom line is you're going to want to make sure that when you actually pick them up, that they feel stabilized. So their front and back legs need to be stable. If they're not, they're going to tail whip. They're going to freak out because they're going to feel like they're not stable and they're going to fall. So what you'll want to do is make sure that you scoop them up. So just do a scoop. So you can put your hand underneath the front of them, and then I would come up back like this or to the side. Don't go overhead because they have this light sensor that when things, like if there's a shadow over their head, they think there's a bird of prey or something bigger than them that's going to get them. So you don't want to do that. You can do a little pickup like this. You could even try scooping like that from the side, but just do a scoop. And then I go up like this. My guy's used to me though. You could go that way, pick them up, make sure that you have them stable before you move them anywhere else. You could also put them on your arm. That's another thing you can do. I like to put my guy on my shoulder. If they don't like to stay out very long, don't force them. I mean, take them out, spend some time with them. But if they really want to go back in, it's okay. Some bearded dragons want to sit with you all day if they could, but you shouldn't let them. Don't. Don't let them sit with you all day because they need that basking time. But others will just come out, go back in, come out, go back in. Just like a dog who's like, I want to go outside. Oh, but I want to be with my human. I want to go outside. So dogs do that. So do some beardies. My bearded dragon does that. He will beg to come out and then he'll want to go back in. He'll spend maybe a couple minutes and then say, I'm done. I want to go in. So it's just kind of funny that way. And then he'll have some days where he would love to explore everywhere if he could. Of course, I want to make sure that he's safe, so I limit where he goes. I don't let him free roam because he could get into anything. He could decide he wants to pick something up and eat it that he shouldn't. He could get lost. He could get stepped on. He could get crushed. He could get stuck. So I really would not recommend just letting them free roam like that. That's how I feel about it. It is up to you what you decide to do, but my best advice is to not let them free roam. Another thing to keep in mind is that their husbandry, how their home is set up, can influence their temperament. So if their heating isn't right, if their humidity isn't right, that can affect if they're going to be feeling up to being handled or being out. It can affect their overall demeanor. If you have an enclosure that you made, make sure that it has a wood that's okay. I do have a video on unsafe wood. There are woods that are considered toxic to bearded dragons. If they inhale the fumes of the wood, even if we can't smell them, they couldn't be inhaling the fumes. It can actually really hurt their respiratory system, and it can cause it to break down, which would potentially give them an upper respiratory infection. So make sure you're aware if you're going to build an enclosure and not buy one, make sure you know what you're building it out of. And that's for all pieces of the wood. So again, watch that video about safe woods. You could also join a Bearded Dragon group. Bearded Dragon Knowledge is a group that I really love, and I highly recommend. They have really good information. The people are very helpful, and they have information. This is actually where I learned about toxic wood. I wouldn't have known this if I hadn't joined a community. So one thing you can do that's really great is to become part of a community that you know is a good one. So that's all I got for now for bonding with your dragon. I hope you found this helpful.